Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show. We're live at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference going on outside of Washington, D.C., but not too far outside at National Harbor, Maryland. So we're just a little ways from the United States, the center of the United States government. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser joins me now in person, the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Doc, it's good to see you in person.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Lars, and it is always great to see you here at CPAC.
Well, listen, tell me this. Where are we sitting right now? And I want to know, since we're at a political conference, who's going to be best prepared and best suited as an American presidential candidate to answer the security needs of this country? I know you usually stay away from politics, but I want to know if you've got an insight there.
Well, I do. I mean, at least I have my opinions, and certainly I have to say this is as a private citizen and not as running my nonprofit. I think any of the candidates, except one that are left, I think would at least have a vision for America having a role in the world. That be it Cruz or Rubio or Kasich, I think understand that a world where America is absent, liberty and freedom will not prosper, evil will grow. They understand that we need to thread the needle between differentiating between Muslims versus Islamists. I'd like to see them say that better. I think Rubio's probably been the best in articulating that, and also articulating that we have a lot at stake in not only defeating ISIS but defeating Assad, and that Russia is not an ally. I will tell you personally, and I've been very happy to see so many in the national security establishment come out and clearly say that Mr. Trump would be a very significant problem for us, not only because of his statements about being friends with Putin and other things, but he clearly has no grasp on what's necessary to be a commander-in-chief and understand the issues necessary to deal in the world that I've been dealing with, which is not alienating the entire Muslim world, but realizing that there are allies that we have. And this is coming from somebody who, by the way, has Trump Dubai that's worth billions, in which he's dealing with these folks anyway. So it's just a bizarre, it's clearly somebody that just says whatever comes to his mind and isn't putting much thought into national security.
So tell me what we should be doing to meet this challenge.
Well, I think we need a president that can declare the new evil empire of today is Islamic states, not just ISIS, but all those that push Sharia law as a system of governance is the evil empire of today.
That would include, before you finish, that would include Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
It would include, go right through the list.
Yeah,
Syria,
the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Pakistan, Syria, Egypt, etc. Now, many of those are our allies, so I wouldn't say to abandon them, but we have to hold them accountable and not have this, now we're calling it frenemies. They're neither our allies nor our enemies. But there needs to be a way to hold them accountable where we say, you know what, yes, in fighting ISIS and Al-Qaeda, we will work together. But we will not go and continue to buy your oil, indiscriminately. We will no longer continue to train your officers and hand you billions in military weapons unless you treat women equally, unless you modify and reform and no longer, Muslims like me in Saudi Arabia are flogged and jailed and tortured in front of mosques, in front of the public. Those cannot be our allies. And to say that our relationship with these governments has had no impact into why ISIS's boot camp remains Saudi Arabia and Qatar is beyond the pale. It is ignorance to say that we have had the lack of strategy and vision has not been related to why the ISIS's continue to recur, and a whack-a-mole program is completely divorced from reality.
Why are countries like Saudi Arabia then not going after them themselves? Because this is it's not just as big a threat. It's a different kind of threat to them, but it's a threat to them as well as a threat to us to allow these training camps within their countries. You'd think that would be an easy call to say, all right, we're not letting this happen in our countries anymore.
Well, because the only difference between the Muslim Brotherhood, the Islamists, and the theocrats of the royal family and the Wahhabis of Saudi Arabia is that one believes in Islamism as a corporate board of directors structure, and the other believes in it in a grassroots gang-like viral phenomena, populist phenomena. They're both drinking from the same. It's like the difference between the Soviet Union and the Bolshevik revolution of communists that were, it's all the same communism, but one wants to control it with a top-down impact, and the other is bottom-up. And they claim to be with us against the Brotherhood and Islamists, but at the end of the day, it's the same National Socialism based in political Islam, a theocracy that's fascist.
Now, Dr. Jasser, when you mention putting pressure on people, on countries, to change their domestic policies and the way they treat their people domestically, it's attractive to me on one hand because I say, well, that's great. They should be more like us. On the other hand, I can imagine myself being on the receiving end. There are countries that think the United States should change some of its domestic policies. I could give you a couple of examples, and I think we would deeply resent it if somebody said, we know better how things should be done, and the United States, should change the way you operate. Well, you should treat women better. You should treat homosexuals better, that sort of thing. So how do we get past that? Because I'm not sure I would want another country telling our country.
That's exactly what you just said, and I've been on a commission for 4 years now that looks at some of these things, and that's the response we get from the State Department is that, we can't impose our ideas. And this is what our ambassador in Egypt told me when we asked him, why are you taking the side of the Brotherhood? And well, who are we to tell them we're not going to take sides in the political battle? My response is that this is about human rights. This is not American ideas. These are universal ideas. It's a UDHR, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, is something, as President Bush used to say, every human being left to their own devices wants to be free, doesn't want to be under the boot of clerics or secular fascists of Assad and military thugs. So I think the Arab awakening in Egypt proved they rejected not only Mubarak, they went to the streets to reject the theocrats. So there are in these communities right now, our so-called allies against ISIS, Russia, is carpet bombing Aleppo. They're bombing to smithereens, not ISIS. My family right now called me on Skype 3 days ago and told me that their neighborhoods are being truly, talk about carpet bombing, that's what's happening right now, not to ISIS, but to the moderates. Those are the families that would have seen Syria evolve towards a less dictatorship type and not Islamist, but now we've sort of let it go to where Russia's feeding Iran and feeding the radicalization of Syria, and they're getting rid of any hope of moderation.
So what do we do with Syria when we have Assad, and who was seen by Hillary Clinton as a moderate and a moderating force, which was a joke.
Yeah.
And now we have Russia involved. We have the Islamic State and Assad fighting rebels within his own country trying to overthrow him. Should we want Assad's overthrow? But then that gives the Islamic State groups a state.
Well,
so is there any solution there?
Well, this is the thing is, and as we look at the presidential candidates, who has a strategy? It can't be just sort of a short-term whack-a-mole. The solution to Syria, you can't get rid of ISIS without getting rid of Assad. The two are mutually related. It's two sides of the same coin. These militant dictators legitimize dictatorship by letting radical Islam flow. Why does the royal family in Saudi Arabia continue to pump Qur'ans that are translated in very draconian ways around the planet while they say they have nothing to do with Al-Qaeda and ISIS? The ideology they're pumping, because it's the opium of the masses. It's the way they maintain control of their society. So you have to defeat both. It's like treating cancer at the same time.
Because I was going to say,
exactly.
You defeat Islamic State first, and the rebels, Assad gets to keep his state, and he stays. You defeat Assad, and the Islamic State probably moves in, or other varieties of Islamic.
I can tell you, Lars.
So how do you get them both at exactly the same moment?
Well, first of all, I can tell you, when I testified to Congress in 2011, we told them, if we don't help whoever the good guys are, there might not be that many, but there was a lot more than there are today. In 2011, 2012, it will become a haven for jihadists, and there was no ISIS then. And sure enough, that's what happened. So to all the isolationists out there who say that, let's not get involved, Syria is a clinic of what happens in the world when we don't get involved. Not militarily. There was an indigenous revolution happening in Syria. They didn't need our troops. They needed us at least to take sides for the liberals that weren't ISIS, that weren't jihadists. And there is a way. Our Muslim Reform Movement, which is now a movement of multiple organizations pushing back against jihadism and against the Islamic State concept, we are willing and ready to start to provide guidance on which Muslims we can help identify in our security apparatus, domestically, etc., that can begin to guide us on who the Muslims are that can help us.
Dr. Jasser, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time.
God bless you. Thank you, Lars.
We'll be back in just